Turnover!
Welcome to part 2 of the interview. If you have not watched part 1, the link will be in the description. I'll throw a little bubble up on the screen if you want to see it. But I want to again thank Chris Nelson and Sean Cowley for taking the time to talk to me. This one is a little bit lengthy, that's why I cut it into a couple spots. If you enjoy it, go ahead, like, share, sub, spread the love, and thanks for tuning in. All right, so let's fast forward a little bit. Chaos Cup. We're looking month and change later. It's a little bit closer to where y'all live, probably.
Little anyways. Yeah. One of us significantly closer.
Yeah.
And I think it was a 40-minute drive for me. So.
I believe I'm still correct in saying Chaos Cup is the biggest U.S. tournament.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. I went last year. It was awesome. It's beautifully ran. On my last interview, we gushed about it a lot. Always gonna shout out James Luft. Awesome dude. But that's not the only TO in town. Sean ran the sevens. You want to just give a rundown, kind of what your thoughts were with kind of how you designed it? Obviously, you were staying thematic. I really like the pig theme. That was fun. I feel like it's hard to balance a themed rule set with not going overboard with all the, bells and whistles and things like that. But overall, you just want to talk about the experience of TOing that event?
Sure. Yeah. So when Chaos Cup moved from Chicago to Orlando, and Jeff Gallenbeck turned passed the torch over to James Luft. Luft used to run the Icebreaker event on Friday nights at Chaos Cup in Chicago, and he asked me to start doing the same in Orlando. And I was a little reticent to do it. I'd run tournaments before, but never anything that big and never anything that far away. But I thought ultimately, sure, I'm happy to give it a shot. And so I've run sevens Icebreaker events in Orlando the last 2 years now for Chaos Cup. The first year, I think we had 74 people that were there. And at the time, it was the largest sevens event in the world that had ever been run. Moracle beat us in this last year, which was also a fun tournament. And I had a blast playing in it, and was very happy that they took our record out. We were not able to eclipse them this year. Hope springs eternal for next year. We had 66 people this year for the tournament, and yeah, I like to try to keep the tournament in theme with whatever the main event is doing. And so the year before, we knew it was sort of a Zon themed tournament. And so I think candidly, in retrospect, I'm talking about that sort of to suggest, how I changed things for this current year.
Yeah.
I think my rule set was a little bit too weird. The weather table for the Zon, rainforest was a little too extreme. I think I had used the one from the Sevens book or from Death Zone, and I think it was a little too much. And we also had the Sacred Egg Ball, which bounces out of people's hands, which a fair number of people, I think, had some concerns with. The TO who was drinking the entire event thought it was hilarious. But yeah, so I dialed it down the next time. On the way out of Chaos Cup last year, James talked to me about his thoughts about the theme for the new year, and had told me, I think I'm going to do Norse. And I said, all right, well, we're doing something beer pig themed then. And so this time around, I dialed the settings way down on things and said, all right, I don't want this to be game breaking again. I'd like the pigs to be interesting, but not game breaking. And so the thought was, let's give everybody some beer pigs. Originally, it was let's give everybody one. And the pig would run onto the field to help you if it thought your players were in trouble. So the first time a player was knocked down, so armor rolls, the pig would run to your rescue, kind of thing. And you get to play with the pig for the rest of the drive. And as the event was approaching, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but both James and I had issues getting people to sign up early and go through pre-registration ahead of time. I was concerned that we weren't really getting a ton of people in there. And so in the fall, I changed the rules slightly and said if you pre-registered, you got not one but two beer pigs on the field, two for the price of. So the overwhelming majority of the people that we had two pigs running around in addition to whatever else they had. I think one player played Norse and had 4 pigs on the field just because he thought it was hilarious. Yeah, so otherwise it was just a regular sevens event. With that many people and only a 3-round tournament, you probably need to play a team that can score a lot of touchdowns in order to, from a tiebreaker perspective, get yourself up to the top tables. That held true both years for the teams that did very well. The top couple of teams in the last few years have been Dark Elves and Skaven and Underworld and Pro Elves. So from that perspective, it was no different really this year. From that perspective, we switched scoring systems this year. Last year we used the typical score program that a lot of TOs used. In the last year since then, though, a friend, Sean Huberman, Sean H. 1986 from the Canadian national team, developed a scoring program that has been used at a bunch of other tournaments, including Chaos Cup this year. It was at a Moracle tournament that a lot of us had seen in the fall, or sorry, in the spring of this last year. And so we switched over to that, and it was great. It allows people to update stuff in real time. And as a TO, it makes things a lot easier. So shout out to Sean and his software. I think it's fantastic. And any TO that might be listening to this, feel free to think about using his software, which is called BBTM, Global Team Management, I think is the acronym. If you reach out to him, he can get you set up and get your tournament on there. And I think the software is great. So I thought the tournament ran fairly well. We've got some interesting ideas for next year. I don't want to get ahead of James. I think I know what he's doing, but he hasn't announced it yet. Let's just say I'm thinking about a different variant next year with a cool theme based on what he's thinking about doing. So
cool.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, if it's any small roster things or sevens, just make Skaven tier 0 and you're good to go. It doesn't matter what the rest of the packet does.
I think it will be Street Bowl, not Gutter Bowl.
Yeah.
I think it will be Street Bowl, so sevens on a thinner pitch. And I've actually got a line potentially on a way to build Street Bowl pitches into the purchase price for the tournament so that you would get a Street Bowl pitch as well.
That'd be cool.
And I think I have, as long as James is going to do what I think he's going to do, I have a cool theme that works from a Street Bowl perspective. It will not be a street, but it will be a Street Bowl pitch. We'll see. Tune.
All right. Just real briefly, Chris, were you playing the sevens event?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
He did not. He abandoned me.
I know.
I was trying to get to
sorry.
Chaos Cup this year, but my budget airline flights ballooned. It was ridiculous. Like, it would have been a bit over a third of the budget that I would have spent to get to Budapest next year. And I'm just like, can I entirely justify this? You know, I don't know. It was a lot more than last year. I really wanted to. It just wasn't in the cards this time. Mm-hmm. But that's why I'm hearing about Chaos Cup, you know, these little interviews I'm doing and stuff. And I'm just like, man, I wish I could have been there.
Just move to Florida.
House me for free, and yes, or get me the hookup with an awesome job. If my current employer listens to this, ignore it.
I got a shut out back. We can wire you for electricity.
I don't need a shower. It's fine.
No, and you can go outside in the trees for a fertilizer. It's all right.
Okay. Compost box. All right, Chaos Cup main event. The big day as far as the US is concerned. I know I've heard from other people. I know when I went, like, logistically, I felt like Chaos Cup was the best ran, like, US tournament I had been to. You know, and just things going smoothly. Allegedly there were hiccups, but I couldn't see them. They felt invisible. Same experience this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, James and I talk a lot running, you know, the two tournaments, and I lean on him a fair amount, and so because of it, I think he says some things to me that he might not say to everybody else. And I oftentimes talk about If the duck looks fine on the surface, it doesn't matter how frantically the duck is paddling underneath the surface. And so from that perspective, I happen to know from inside information, because I was there and involved, that there were a few minor hiccups, at least as far as things were concerned, as far as the rostering and round things, stuff like that. But nothing, frankly, that anybody would have really seen or made a difference in anybody's, experience. James does a phenomenal job. The amount of work he puts into event planning is unparalleled, frankly, and he's a real treasure to the community because of it. So I hope he continues to do it a very, very long time.
Yeah.
100%.
Nice. All right. Let's talk about your rosters real quick and kind of what thought process went into them.
You want to go first?
I threw mine together. Yeah, I threw mine together about a week before the tournament.
Okay. That was past the submission
so-
date.
Yeah, it was past the submission date, and I had a good reason, because everybody expected me to play Chaos Dwarves. And James Left said, if you were planning on playing Chaos Dwarves, you have extra time. So I used
Okay.
that extra time, and I did not have a lot of time before the tournament began. I was like, whatever, let me just type this up here. This looks good. And I just shot off the first thing that came to my mind, which was a human roster with Griff.
Okay.
Like, I need to have enough touchdowns to win tiebreakers.
Right.
My rationale was, I did fine last year. I got 19th, but one of my main problems was I didn't have enough touchdowns going for me. So I was like, let's fix that. Humans with Griff, I'm comfortable with it. It's a good roster. So I had Griff, 4 blitzers, a thrower in case Griff was kicked off the pitch. I had the ogre, of course, and in order to afford Griff, I had to have the rest of the linemen with 2 halflings. So I basically always had a halfling on the pitch, which is fine. You just foul with him. You have the 1-turn touchdown. It's all good. And then I had rerolls. I think 2 for skills, because Griff takes 3 skills. I had 3 guard on the blitzers, and I went the European way for Mighty Blow on a blitzer instead of tackle, which in hindsight was not the right choice, but what are you going to do?
Right.
I made the right choice at the time. I picked Mighty Blow. It was fine. The fact that I didn't have a skill on the ogre never bit me, which was good, thank God.
Okay.
But yeah, Griff is Griff, and Griff is going to do Griff stuff.
Right.
So it's a good roster.
Yeah, for myself, I went back and forth for a while about what I actually wanted to play. I based on the rule set, I knew it was going to be a good elf roster. Based on the fact that 1.2 is a lot of money and you were still getting a lot of skills. And so from that perspective, I had it pegged as an elf tournament for me. As it turned out, I played dark elves, but I was by no means locked in on dark elves for both tournaments, especially for Chaos Cup. I built 2 rosters I really liked. I built a Wood Elf roster that was just a base Wood Elf one. And ironically, I built a Pro Elf with Eldril roster as well. And for reasons that I know you've had conversations about, maybe one of those might have been a better choice for me. Really glad that Steve Jarrett, who's a good friend of mine, won. I was really excited to see him do that. But for me, anyways, I went to a series of tournaments in May, I think it was, that Steve Campbell ran. He ran the Bison series of tournaments. And I got this crazy idea in my head that I was going to fly to Minneapolis, rent a car, drive to North Dakota and then South Dakota, and then back to Minneapolis and fly home. And it was great. And so I played in tournaments in 2 states in a weekend and didn't take any time off of work. I grabbed the last flight out of Detroit on Friday night, and I was home in time for telework on Monday, and my boss never knew otherwise.
Nice.
But it was the same build for that tournament. It was also the same rule set that the year beforehand I had gone 5 wins and a loss at 3 Kingdoms, and the loss was a 1-1 to Saul's team. My team was Brad Arterberry and I, and we lost to my buddy here on the chat, who was playing with John Lackey in that tournament. So I felt pretty good about the build before that. I won one of the tournaments in North Dakota. I almost won one in South Dakota. And so I really liked the Dark Elf build. And it wasn't until I think the deadline day when we were all in Greece already. I think I drunkenly went back to the house after dinner one night, and Brad Harderberry and I both submitted our rosters together off of his computer. And so I took the roster I tend to take when that build is what's there. 1.2 Dark Elves means that you have the bench, and instead of the 2 rerolls I had in Greece, you get a third. And when you get a 7th skill, I like to flip that bench player into a runner, both for the additional movement. Sometimes the 3+ pass will come in handy if you're trying some kind of a hero play. I won't typically take him, though, unless I get a 7th skill. And I do something very, very unorthodox. I wrestle the runner.
Okay.
On the theory that I don't want you hitting him anyways. And so if I'm letting you hit my ball carrier, something has gone horribly wrong for me already. I like having a wrestle piece for safety kind of concerns.
Yep.
And I don't, as we've already talked about, I don't like putting wrestle on a witch, ultimately. So I had a safety who tends to come up pretty big for me in a lot of circumstances. And every once in a while, if something goes poorly, I'll try a double. I think I tried one in the course of the tournament, as we'll talk about. But ultimately, it's a roster that's worked well for me in the past. And so I got non-creative. In retrospect, I think I probably actually would have played the Wood Elf roster, which was very similar to the one that Matt Vanderby played and did very well with as well. But yeah, I thought it was a great elf roster setup for the build.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, when you first said it seemed like an elf tournament to you, that's immediately what came to mind. It was like, all right.
Yeah, I mean, with that many skills and with that much money, you can get a bench, you can get a bunch of rerolls, and in a tournament like that, you've either probably got to have a really good star like Chris did, or you've got to have a team where, frankly, everybody are stars. And I've had success in 1.2 tournaments where that's going on the other side. You have to know you're going to see a ton of stars all tournament, but those elves can do lots of cool stuff.
Yeah.
As we'll talk about in some of my games.
Every single game. Well, not every single game, but yeah, the same star at least twice. That's always fun.
Okay. Yay, stars. I'm glad they're just such a non-controversial element of the game. Everyone's on board, everybody's chill, especially the Europeans. All right, so we had, if anybody wants to hop back to my interview with Steven Jarrett, we talked a bit about kind of the pacing and the atmosphere and everything for the tournament. So if everyone's curious about that, we'll kind of skip that one in this one, but you can go back and you can kind of hear what it was like there. Let's just get straight into the rounds. Let's talk about round one. Talk about what did you expect from when you first saw your opponent's roster, and did it play out that way? If we want to start with you, Chris.
Yeah, I was matched up against a gentleman with Amazons. I was expecting Amazons with Dribble and Drool, and that was not the case, which that's okay with me. That's fine. In fact, I prefer that. So then we began playing. Honestly, that's the match I probably remember the least about. Being as it was the first one of the 6. It ended up being a 2-1 win for me. Griff was my main ball carrier. So basically, I removed enough Amazons to where I had the numbers advantage, and then I just stuck with the 2-1 grind. Nothing fancy. At this point, you don't got to come out of the gate racing.
Right.
You take what's given to you, and you just, if the Amazons are going to go down to 8 players, just win 2-1. That's just win. So that's what I did.
Cool.
I have
The other games are more exciting.
I have a terrible record in round 1 at Chaos Cup for reasons that I've tried to solve and figure out. I don't know. I think I've tied a game at Chaos Cup, and I keep getting these asinine games that just don't go my way. And I drew with my Dark Elves. I drew dwarves with a Death Roller and a Bribe in the opening game, and it did not go the way you're expecting the story is going to go.
Okay.
It did not. Seeing the Death Roller out there, I said, all right. And typically, I will, as I already said with the Euro conversation, I love playing defense, except if there's a reason not to. And so I said, all right, well, I'm playing offense first because I'm not going to deal with this Death Roller for 8 turns. So was ready to go, and he did not play his Death Roller on the opening drive. Which flabbergasted me. So he's got a Death Roller and a Bribe. He's got 270K sitting on the bench between the two of them. And so I said, cool, great. We're going to spend 8 turns on this drive having a good time. And it turns out I was correct. One of us did have a very good time. It was just one of those, he took a lot of 1-die blitzes and open star removal. He forced me. I was down enough players. I think I had 5 guys in the KO box. I think I had 5 by the end of the drive. It just got to the point where I didn't have enough players to shield myself. The ball got knocked free. He wasn't able to do anything with it. But we go into the second half scoreless. All 5 of my KO rolls failed. So I'm starting with 7 guys with my bench player. He quickly eliminated several of them. I played the majority of the second half with 4 players on the pitch. He still had to roll dice turn 16. He had to dodge with no rerolls with his runner, and he got his 3 and beat me 1-0. So the search for a win in round 1 for me continues. But as we'll talk about, I was able to execute quite the submarine in coming back later.
Yeah, I think my main point of interest, I guess, to take away from that story was that you faced a dwarf player that had any amount of discipline. So I think that's impressive by itself.
I'll go to my grave saying, if you're going to take the Death Roller and you're going to have a Bribe, you should play it. If nothing else, force me to score quickly so that you have an opportunity to score back. Especially with the Bribe, you don't have to play it because he had a bench player. You don't have to play it in the second drive if you don't want to in the first half. But as it turned out, it didn't matter.
Right.
So he was a really nice guy. It's not his fault, but sometimes the game is sort of out of your control.
Right. All right. So we have a little bit of disparity between the results between y'all for round 1. How did round 2 treat you?
Oh, round 2 was my best game of the tournament.
Okay.
I played against a dwarf coach. Let me look up his name real quick because I have it right here. Extreme. I forget his real name. He played Brian Mitchell. Okay. He super nice guy. He played a really well painted dwarf team. Gave me a token and everything like that when we met. And he called his team the 40 Miners. And what happened was I would move Griff with the ball this way, and the dwarves would, and then Griff would go this way, and the dwarves would be like, I can't, and then I would score. And then I scored, and then I scored, and then I scored, and it was 4-0. So I turned my luck around from Euro Bowl.
Yeah.
And I did it to somebody else. So I felt really good about it because that gave me the touchdowns I needed for any like 3rd or 4th tiebreaker. So that put me up really high on both the touchdown list and tiebreaker lists and stuff, and it was good. So it was a good solid win. He didn't do anything wrong. It's just dwarves are slow and Griff is fast. So
right.
C'est la vie.
I had I got back on track. It was a good game for me in that I was able to execute at least the plan B or plan 1A or 1B might be a better way to suggest it. I played against a gnome team who had a Deep Root and he had Acorn, I believe.
Okay.
I know he had Acorn. And because of it, and he won the toss, and I try not to surrender any touchdowns
Right.
in the tournament. I ended up only giving up 4 all weekend, and 2 of them were in the final game. And so from that perspective, I went in with the idea of let's shut this down and turn him over and score on his drive.
Hmm.
And that's not always the easiest thing to do with a launchpad team like Gnomes. He got some stuff that worked so that the Fox got the ball. And if you miss against the Fox is going to score.
Right.
So I think he scored, turn 3. And I said, all right, well, the secondary play is we're going to execute a 2-1 grind, and he's never going to touch the ball again. He's going to get a 1-turn chance at the end of the game, which I can't do anything about. And it was just one of those games. It was one where I was just absolutely able to do what I wanted to do, control the ball, not let him get any chances at me. Scored. I think I walked into the end zone both times, uncontested. Didn't need to roll dice. And he didn't have any re-rolls left by the end of it, and the 1-turn didn't work. So the 2-1 grind, which was kind of the original plan that I thought would need to happen, worked out.
It's always nice when you plan a thing and the thing actually happens. Cool. All right. So round 2, food. Start with you, Chris. What was the food meta?
What did I do?
And I can't even remember what I ate.
Get the Greek
Oh,
food was
I
just
ran like a goldfish.
overshadowing everything.
My group, I ended up in a group that went over to, there's a new Del Taco that popped up right around the corner from there. I went for tacos for lunch that day, and it was a decision I stood by. It was good.
I remember now. It was Portillo's. We went with a big group of us over to
Okay.
Portillo's,
Mhm.
and I mean, hot take, gonna get you some dislikes on this video. Gonna get ratioed.
Nice.
But Portillo's is overrated, bro. That was the most expensive cheese and meat I've ever eaten in my life. Like $19. No, dude. All right.
Yeah.
That's gonna get
It
you
was
some.
okay.
That's
It
gonna get
was
you some
good.
fire in the Chicago area, yeah. But
I know.
That's just gonna be that's just gonna be like the clickbait like title for this one. It'll just be like Florida man says Portillo sucks. Now the
Overrated,
cool
bro.
thing about Del Taco though, the Taco Tuesday, they got the deals. You get the
I've
beef
never.
tacos.
We don't have Del Tacos where I live in Detroit, and so we were all actually the bunch of us that walked over there. We didn't totally know what to expect.
Yeah.
And tacos and fries are a great idea.
Yeah, I mean it's not bad. It's definitely the white people tacos as they dub them a little more so, but I love tacos. I don't understand why people discriminate against tacos in general. I think all tacos are beautiful. But now, if anyone who is near a Del Taco though, the Taco Tuesday, I think this is national. They do a deal on the ground beef tacos, and I think on Wednesday they do a deal on the chicken tacos. So all the starving college kids will continue to starve because they can't even afford that. So anyway, you get back from lunch, all right? You're looking at round 3, right, staring at in its imposing face. You're still got another round that day for Chaos Cup. How are you feeling? Like, how did it go?
Yeah, so we still had 2 games left at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Because they do a split. They do a 4-2 for Chaos Cup. I felt better having gotten a win in the second round for myself. I was ready to go for the rest of the day, and it was a pretty good day for me in the afternoon. So I think the Del Taco was largely what I will credit for what went on for me. But what about you, Chris?
I'm feeling pretty good. It was 2 wins to start. I'm in it to win it. I want to win the whole thing. Like that's why I showed up. So to start off with 2 wins and now move up to that first line of tables just outside of top tables.
Right.
Around me I've got all the big names.
Oh yeah.
I'm staring down. I see Mike Kuhn. I see Matt Vanderbeek. I see Brian too. I see Saul Lackey. I see everybody. We're all in this section, and I'm just like, okay, just win, baby. So I feel good. I'm matched up in round 3 against, oh gosh, what was his name? CMAX79. He's playing Norse.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, this is why I brought a Mighty Blow Blitzer. This is going to be good. We're just going to remove all these Norsemen. And it didn't happen that way. It happened the other way. But Griff gonna Griff.
Right.
So I go up 2-0 on him. And this is the most disappointing game of the tournament. I'm so thankful that he was such a great guy, that really softened the blow of this. And it really changed the trajectory of the whole tournament because I'm up 2-0
Mm-hmm.
with 5 turns left. But I have 5 guys on the pitch, 4 or 5 guys on the pitch. And I give up the touchdown because there's not much I can do about it. And so now it's 2-1, and there are 2 turns left. 2 turns left. So I'm receiving. All right, cool. I'm just gonna take my 5 guys. I'm gonna take my ball and go home. You
Mm-hmm.
know. So he kicks the ball. I get it, and I set up on my second to last turn in the back. I've got the ball held. I've got my line of guys. Come and get me, right?
Right.
So he does. He sends everybody forward. Big mistake. He doesn't have anybody in the backfield really. So I'm like, okay, you brought everybody to base me and get your 1 blitz, but I've still got the ball. Fair's fair. It's actually not even in Griff's hands. It's in the thrower's hands.
Okay.
And I was like, let's punt. Right? So I push his guys away, open up a lane, go around to the side, and I go, pass action. Here's my mistake. I decide to pass it 6 squares.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not as big a negative. If I choose the long bomb way out of his range, I'm going to fumble it or something really bad, right?
Right.
I'm like, okay, this is going to be a 3-up, re-rollable. Just put it 6 squares back behind his guys. It's all good. So I do, and I rolled a 6, of course, which would have made the long bomb possible. But the ball bounces around like a full. God, this is over by the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what the guy does? He takes his Valkyrie, puts it back, picks up the ball, goes for it, passes it, catches it, and then his drunkard, after he blitzes my guys out of the way and creates a lane, his drunkard goes for it twice and scores the touchdown to tie it 2-2. And so that game was, and he's like, "I'm so sorry." I'm like, it's okay, man. Like, don't be sorry. That's what anybody should have done. Like, it was my mistake. So at that point, I'm a little deflated, and I'm talking to myself, going, "You know what? You can still win this. You still have a shot at this. It's just a draw.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The chances of somebody going 6-0, you still have a shot at this." So I got to talk myself up. But yeah, it was a really interesting game where I was down a lot of players. I tried my best. I did make that play mistake in retrospect. But yeah, nice guy, good game, a lot of fun.
If it makes you feel any better, last year I lost best defense at a tournament on turn 16 of the last round against a Norse team. I gave them 2 turns to score on me, and instead it was a Valkyrie picking up the ball, running forward, and tossing it to an Ulf Werner that got it, managed to like blitz through the person that was based and get through to the end. And I'm just like, okay, I guess I don't have best defense now. So the power of the Norse thrower.
You look at the Valkyrie. Yeah, you just look at it and you forget that it comes with 4 skills off the bat, and
Right.
one of them's pass. You're like, oh, that's right. That's right. That safety runner person is also a thrower. Okay.
Norse passing
Well,
meta.
Stupid game sometimes, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, my third game
Oh shit.
was I continued my climb back into relevancy.
Mm-hmm.
I played a human team. It was a double ogre build. It was an ogre and Zug. And I beat him 2-1. I kicked. I don't remember what happened, but I got an opportunity to get in there. I got the ball out and scored at the end of the half and went up 1-0 receiving. punched in a second touchdown real quick, and then just played keep away. It was one of the, despite the fact that he had 2 ogres, he hadn't removed any guys.
Okay.
And beating elves, if you can't remove them, is always tough. So,
Right.
2-0 win, and I felt better about myself going into the final round of the day.
Double ogres. That's interesting. I mean, ogres are like reliable, but they're not like reliable.
His actually, now that I'm thinking about it, his ogre went dumb like 4 turns in a row in the first half too, and it was part of the reason I was able to get in there.
Yep. Yeah, it feels super, super bad when that happens for sure. But yeah, I'm gonna go on record too. I have gotten most casualties at a couple tournaments where I did not take Mighty Blow, and I believe Mighty Blow is a fake skill. I believe it does not exist.
I second that.
I think an additional block or a tackle or even like a wrestle lineman probably has done more for me over the course of existing. Like, I'll throw it on if I can, but I don't know. I've just have it too many games where it does nothing. And hopefully,
Well,
if
my last 3 matches,
yeah,
that tackle would have been the better choice for sure.
And we need to get somebody who's a fan of Mighty Blow in the comments, upping my engagement and arguing about it. So go ahead, because you're completely wrong, and I'm right here. All right, final round of day 1. Round 4. Chris, you said you talked yourself up. You were in the process of drinking your Florida juice or doing whatever it is you do.
Florida juice.
Bath salts, yeah. So I do my bath salts. I'm ready to eat somebody's face. I played this really nice guy. He, oh gosh, what's his name? I can't remember his name. He looked like Sal Vulcano. I mentioned that to him. You know, like the Impractical Jokers.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Have you ever watched the Impractical Jokers?" He's like, "No," and I was like, "You wouldn't get it." But yeah, dead on doppelganger for Sal Vulcano. In any case, he was playing Amazons with Dribble and Drool, so here we are. Okay. Second game against Amazons. We got the Dribble and Drool combo. And we're playing our game, and he's not using his defensive to the fullest he could, because I have 3 guard, and that could really be a problem for me. So I mentioned that to him at the end of the game. I said, but definitely focus on those guys some more. But man, the end of that game, gosh, what did it? I have my stats here. It ended up being 2-0 me, but it was closer than that.
Mm-hmm.
That last touchdown came at the end of the second half. So it was a good game. Dribble and Drool tried to take out Griff. They failed. Thank God. I took, I think, both of them out in the knockout box. His knockout box was just full, but I couldn't casualty for the life of me. I didn't need to. As long as you win, you're fine. So I'm still in the top area. The draw from the previous round didn't knock me down. So I'm feeling good. I'm up 2-0. I win the game, and I'm like, okay, 3 wins and a draw to finish the day. Sounds good to me. At the end of the day, I was ranked number 4.
Nice.
So I'm feeling really good about starting day 2.
Yeah, I kept my climb back out of the crevice that I put myself in the opening round, and I beat Townie from Arizona. He was playing an orc team. I beat him 2-0. I don't believe he had a star. If I remember, he had a bunch of rerolls. I think he had 4 rerolls on the team, and a bench. And it was just a big orc build. I think there were a couple of skills that I don't remember exactly what he had taken, but there were a couple of things that weren't quite the meta. And I looked and I was like, okay, this is either going to really work or it's not.
Right.
I think he guarded all of the big uns, if I remember correctly. As opposed to a lot of times in tournaments, you'll see 2 block, 2 guard.
Yep.
And maybe, yeah, exactly. He didn't have 4 for very long, because in turn 1, I believe, I played defense first again. I played defense, I think, almost every single drive in the tournament, at least the middle games. I killed one of his guard Black Orcs, I think, opening turn on my blocks because he ended up based with me. And we were off to the races. By the end of the game, I think I killed 5 orcs, which is just asinine for a Dark Elf team with no mighty blow.
Yep.
It was just one of those games where it just started to snowball. He couldn't. I got the removals happened later. I was able to, especially with a team like Orcs, Undead, slower stuff like that. I like to diagonal base the corners of the cage so that if you're going to block me, you can't follow up unless your cage gets pulled apart, essentially. And it tends to work against those bigger guys. Now, with armor 9+, you're risking losing your players. Do it, but in the right circumstances, I'll throw a Blodge Blitzer on a cage corner diagonally so that you can follow if you want. You're either not going to get anywhere, or your cage is going to slowly come apart. And eventually, a lot of players a lot of times will eat it for a turn or two, but once they get behind kind of where they knew they kind of needed to be on the field, they will oftentimes start to pull apart, and then that 5+ dodge into the cage becomes a 4 or maybe even a 3 to get in there, and it starts to fall apart. And I turned him over and scored on his drive, and then I scored quickly again. And by then he was down enough players that it just didn't matter anymore. So by the end of that, really nice guy. It certainly wasn't his fault. He had a lot of questions for me afterwards. What would you have done differently? And I told him, sometimes there's nothing you can do, and we've talked a lot about how there was not a whole lot I could have done in some of my matchups, especially round 1 in this tournament already today. And I said, look, sometimes it just doesn't work for you, dude. And that was really kind of the game that I had there. So going in, I'm 3 wins and a loss after dropping the opening game like an idiot. Again, I felt pretty good about the matchups coming up. I knew I was going to be around table 10, table 12 the next day, and also knew based on the people I was around that I might get a matchup with one of my favorite players, and I ended up getting it. We'll talk about that in the next round.
Cool. Yeah, Townie's a good guy. Also runs I believe it's Tucson Monsoon Bowl.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yep. Really nice guy. We ended up going to dinner together that night as well with a group of people. Really good guy, good player. It was one of those games that sometimes it's not your fault.
Yeah. Yeah, I played him at Rocky Mountain Rampage the first year I went, and yeah, it was a really fun game. Yeah, I won't get into that, but cool. All right, did you all sleep that night?
Eventually.
Yeah, I had to drive back to my house. It was only about a 45-minute drive, which is nice.
Yeah.
So I had to sleep at home. I'm always worried about sleeping in on tournament nights. I was very excited, so it was tough to go to sleep. I think I stayed up till 1 in the morning. So, but that's fairly typical for me. I don't get a lot of sleep. I do that on work nights too. So I I went to bed, I woke up, and I drove back.
I did the opposite. I went out to dinner with a group of guys. It included Brian Mitchell, who Chris played earlier in the day. TJ Jackson, Townie was in the group as well. Tom Rummery, if any of you are Tom Rummery aficionados, Tom was there too. We went to a Japanese steakhouse. Brian Mitchell and I convinced the waiter that it was Tom's birthday, even though it wasn't. So they brought him a stupid hat and they sang to him, and he was very confused about what was going on. And I looked at the drink menu and said, okay, well, I could get a drink, and here's the prices for them, or I could get this asinine monstrous drink, which is cheaper than 2 of them. And it came out and it was on fire, and everybody was making fun of me, and it was large. It was supposed to be for 2 people, but it was cheaper than ordering 2 drinks. So
right.
I had a good time. We got home at a relatively reasonable hour. I think I was probably in bed by midnight, but nothing too crazy anyways.
Yeah, it's nice to actually get sleep ever. Cool. So next morning, final 2 rounds. You have a rough idea where y'all are at least in the standings and everything. You're both towards the upper part, so that's good. All right, you hit round 5. How's it go?
Well, there's 206 coaches, I think, that participated,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm feeling good. I'm number 4. I get to sit at table 2. And if people don't know the rules for Chaos Cup, after round 5, then only the top 2 tables have a chance to win the tournament. So I know at this point I have to, if I want to win the whole thing, I have to win this game. Regardless of whether it's 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns, I have to win. There's no drawing if I want to get it all.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my mindset. I know it's not going to be easy. The other person that's there is there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Ends up being Russ Castronovo.
Nice.
At least I think that's his name.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he runs West Coast Quake. You guys probably know him much better than I do.
Oh yeah.
West Coast Quake is one of the first tournaments I ever heard of when I was first starting playing Blood Bowl in like 2014. I looked up Blood Bowl online and I saw graphics of West Coast Quake. So
Mm-hmm.
when he told me that, I thought that was really cool. Russ is very talkative during his games.
Oh yeah.
I am not. So there was a couple times where, as he was talking to me, which of course he talked to me on my turn, I had to be like, "I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm really, really focused here. So I'm going to talk to you after the game, okay?" And he's like, "Sure, no problem." I was like, "Because I want to hear about your stuff, but I'm gonna blitz now." And so he's playing Amazons with Dribble and Drool. So this is my second match against that roster. He is playing Dribble and Drool very effectively. And I hate that combination. Especially on Amazons. It is rough. So luckily for me, the Mighty Blow still doesn't come into effect, but my other guys are on fire. I'm not getting the casualties, but I'm getting the knockouts. I think by the end of it, we can ask him, he has a better idea. It was at least 6, if not 8 players in the knockout.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So I put his team in there
Yeah.
and just sat on the ball. And so I think it was 0-0 at the half. And in the second half, when his team started to fall asleep, I just let him do it. As I was saying to myself, look, at this point, it's it's head to head, I think, first, then strength of schedule, then I think it's net touchdowns. And I was like, I'd love to get 2 touchdowns on him, but I know what's going to happen. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
score, and
Mm-hmm.
7 of those 8 players are going to come back. And
Yep.
so
Take
I'm
the
not
win.
going to do that.
Yep.
I'm just going to take the win. He's got like 4 guys left. I'm going to just sit here and win. So I got him 1-0, and then I'd spend the next hour looking at BBTM go, "Doot, doot, doot." Here I am at, oh, look at that. I'm at 2. Now I'm
Mm-hmm.
at 8. Now I'm at 4. Now
Yep.
I'm at 6. Now I'm at 2. Now I'm at 2. And I was like, oh, it was so frustrating. I went to Sean a couple times and said,
Yeah.
like, dude, look at this. Oh no, look at this. And I was like, and he's like, you gotta calm down. You can't stare at it, man. What's gonna be will be.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
So
ultimately, it just the strength of schedule changes as late games that have nothing to do with you are radically changing the top couple of games.
Right.
You know, kind of what's looked
that
there. That was a
that
roller
had a huge
coaster. It
effect
really
on who I
was.
played.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had a huge effect on who I played because I didn't go around and check on my guys. I didn't want to be that person that was like, "Hey, I beat you a couple rounds ago. How are you doing?" Right? So I didn't do that. But I was like, one guy, I forget which one, came up to me and was like, "Sorry, man, I lost." I'm like, "It's okay." What are you gonna do? Strength of schedule.
Right.
That is a good way of breaking ties.
Oh yeah.
It is a good way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. For what
So
it's worth.
I
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. No, go ahead.
Russ is, I mean, obviously runs West Coast Quake. He
Mm-hmm.
has that wonderful presenter voice. It's just like silky
Mm-hmm.
smooth, and everything is
Yep.
like a narration. But he also won my Gutter Bowl tournament that I ran at KublaCon this year. So
Okay.
thanks.
Russ is a great guy.
I think I told him that. I think I was like, dude, you got a voice like for radio or like
Yeah.
oh, what's it called when you voice animated characters? So I was like, you have a voice for that because I noticed that too right away.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
So I got a great matchup that I was actually looking forward to, even though he's a very good coach, and I knew that there were matchups I could have drawn that would have been better for me overall as far as like chance to win were concerned. But I think I was on table 10, table 11, so around top 20. Going into the final round, and I played Matt Barber, Matt Mann, and his 200 rated Chaos team. This kid plays Chaos like they're a real team. He's great with them. He's Team Minotaur, just like you are, Chris. He loves having a Minotaur in there. He took Skitter based on the build, so he had Chaos with Skitter. Tough match, a 200 rated Chaos coach, kind of thing. And so from that perspective, I knew it was going to be a tough matchup. He and I have history together. We were on the same Oracle team together. I'm very good friends with the whole Barber family. I run tournaments. I run icebreaker stuff for them at their 2 tournaments that they run every year in upstate New York. They live outside Albany. And so I knew that was going to be a thing. And I also, years ago, I threw a blocker that caused him to not win Saul Nicely's Underworld Cup. He and I were top table in the final round, and I drew against him and let Ken Washington win Underworld, which Matt has never let me, has never forgiven me for. So we played our game. I beat him 2-0. In the opening drive, again, it was one of those, I camped out on the diagonal on the cage corners. He knew he had to keep advancing or he was going to get slowed down. Now he's got Skitter, so he doesn't have to move too much, but he kept following up because he wanted, and I think probably correctly, he wanted to keep taking shots at my elves and making me dodge away. He didn't want to give me the free reposition that would be associated with. And I had an opportunity midway first half to hit Skitter in the cage, and all I needed to do was roll a 3+2+ to get in there, and got it. Got the 2 die on Skitter. I got a decent bounce out where I was able to pick up in his zone and run away. And so I ended up beating him 2-0. The score was not indicative of the game. I punched in a very early second half touchdown thinking, I don't care if he's got Skitter, let's do this,
Yeah.
I'm not giving up 2 touchdowns. And so ended up with a 2-0 win, which vaulted me up to, I think table 5, I think I played, maybe table 6 in the final round, which given the fact that I blew the first game, I'm 4 wins and a loss now. I feel pretty good coming back. I think my second game was, on, I don't know, table 90 something. So it wasn't good. So we've successfully executed the submarine at this point, and we're rising back up, and we're not going to win the tournament. But at least we're playing a relevant final game, which is always one of the ways that I measure success in a tournament, is the table you finish on anyways.
Yeah, and sometimes it comes down to bonus points. I remember Rampage one year, first, second, and third were separated by 1 bonus point each. That kind of thing just happens. Round 6, y'all are both hovering up top. Was there any pressure at this point, or was it just you're in the zone doing your thing?
Well, I'm watching names fly all over the place on BBTM. And I'm like, okay, I like that matchup. Oh, no, please not that. Like, the last person in the world I want to play is Mike Kuhn and his vampires.
Yeah.
I do not want to play, Mike, when you're watching this, I do not want to play your big brain. I do not want to play your stupid vampires. And I do not want to play your right side up clear glass that you shake your dice in. I don't want any part of it. So you stay over there, I'll stay over here. So I'm seeing names go up and down. And of course, it settles on Matt Vanderbeek. So yeah, there's pressure. Yeah, absolutely. I have, first off, at the top table is the eventual winner, right? Versus John Rivers, and John Rivers is somebody who I've played before. He's 5-0 with Norse for some reason, which is awesome. So we're all rooting for him too. And the only way for me to win the tournament is for them to tie, and I have to win my game. But going up against Matt Vanderby and his Wood Elves, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a good one. Yeah, so there's pressure.
Yeah,
What about you, Sean?
I didn't feel a lot of pressure because I knew I wasn't going to win the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I did feel pressure that it was already for me going to be a very good result for a tournament. And I did, I suppose, feel a little bit of pressure to get that last win and go 5 wins and a loss and have a high top 10, mid range anyways, 5-6 kind of finish from that perspective. I drew Eric Nieberger's Corn team, and it was Corn with Skitter. And so from that perspective, it was a very similar match to what I had just played.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew going into it, all right, we just did this, just execute the same way, kind of thing. The extra frenzy is a problem, but it's also a manageable problem. And to a certain extent, it's kind of what I want to pull your cage apart with elves anyways. So from that perspective, I probably didn't feel the butterflies that Chris did on table 2 with a legit chance to win it, because I knew I wasn't actually in, winning the tournament. But I absolutely, at this point, I'm 4 wins and a loss. I've only given up the 2 touchdowns in the opening 2 games at this point, so I was riding pretty high, and I made a choice to go aggressive and just try and bring it home, figuring if I take a loss, okay, no problem, but I'm never going to live with myself if I don't take a shot, and it doesn't work anyways.
Yeah, that makes sense. So did your aggression end up working out, or how'd that go?
About that aggression. So I contend I did the exact right thing, even though it did not work out. I lost the game 2-0. I in the opening turn, he chose to receive, which I would have received against Corn. I would not have taken shots to the face from his Corn players, given the option. Plus, I'd rather get him down a guy or 2 from his linemen if I had the opportunity to. He set up he had an X cage 2-3 squares behind his line of scrimmage. He didn't have guys on the wings to prevent a side assault on the cage on either side, and I had blodgers ready to go. And he had the X cage was made with linemen. There was no guard in the cage anywhere. And so I made the choice. We're gonna roll the dice and we're gonna go now, and we're gonna try to win the game immediately. And so I took 2 blodge blitzers and parked them next to and basing both sides. So I had a guy in the middle of both parts of the X cage to cancel those assists, and sent a witch in on a 5-up dodge on the idea that 40% of the time, if I hit that 5, I'm probably going to win the game, because I've got 4 dice with block on his, strength 2 no block guy. And I got the 5 on the opening roll, and Eric looked at me like, oh man, this is terrible. And I went push. Second block skull push or something like that. So I ended up pushing him I re-rolled it as well, and could not get him down. I think I rolled a dodge pile that didn't matter. And so at the end of and if I had gotten the ball out, it was going to bounce away probably from the cage. I had gotten him basically out of the cage. I had guys on the wing ready to pick it up and run away and be done with it. So I ended turn 1 with 3 of my 6 blodgers, based with the cage back there, thinking, all right, he's still got to do a bunch of work over here. None of these guys have block. He doesn't have a ton of rerolls. Let's make him roll 1 and 9s. He killed all 3 of the players that were in base contact with the cage in the next turn. I was like, all right, cool, fine. In the second half, so he scored 1-0. I was down a bunch of players. I had an opportunity to score relatively early in the second half and tie at 1-1, but he still had Skitter, and I was down enough players that I did not feel like I was going to be able to stop him. I needed to try and get Skitter off the field first, and Skitter was down and stunned, and I figured let's just go take a shot at fouling Skitter and try and get him out of the game. And if that doesn't work, okay, fine, we'll punch a touchdown in. And I one reroll won the dodge blitz, which the only player that could foul Skitter, and so ended my turn. And he got the open star pow in the next turn and took my ball away, and then that was the end of the game. So it was a fun game. Eric played a really good game. I went super aggressive and it backfired on me. I would do it again, but obviously it didn't pan out in that game.
Chris, you are going into your round. You finally know what your matchup is. You're not staring at a screen of names randomly scrolling anymore. How does it go?
Yep. All right, so I introduced myself to Matt for the first time. I know who he is, but he doesn't know who I am. So I introduced myself to him, and we begin setting up and rolling our stuff. Um, I'm at +2 fans. He wins the deciding, so he's going to kick to me, which is not what I want against Wood Elves. So good. Then we get one of the organizers comes over and tells us that we shouldn't be set up yet because it's not time. And so we sit there going back and forth like, well, do we re-roll everything? They want us to reset up and redo everything, right?
Yeah.
And eventually we decide on 4 up, we'll redo it. Okay. So we roll. Yeah, we have to redo it. And I'm like, crap, I didn't want to do that. We re-roll everything. Everything stays the exact same except for instead of me being up 2 fans, he's up 2 fans.
Okay.
So, hooray. So I set up Griff in the back, everybody on the line, gonna smack some elves around with my mighty blow. Sounds good. I did not set up for the blitz, which is what he immediately rolls. And then proceeds to go behind my line, sit there with a wood elf catcher, create a cage, catcher catches it. I try to run in and stop it. That's not happening. Score on turn 2. So I'm playing down 1-0 against Matt Vanderby from turn 2 on. And I'm like, okay, well, that sucks. If I lose this match, not only am I not going to win the tournament, obviously, but I'm probably going to go down to like 12th or something after this really great run. And I don't want to do that. So I'm like, okay, here's the best we can do. I'm going to score in this half. It's going to be 1-1. I'm going to kick to him, and then I've got to steal it. That's the only strat. That's all that's going to happen. I'm able to hold the ball for 6 turns against elf assault after elf assault. Griff down there by the end zone, just barely hanging on. He's trying to get those 1-die blocks with an assist, and I'm just hanging on. Fend. And eventually on turn 8, I walk it in. I go, it's 1-1. Okay, good. Good. We start the second half, and he's receiving. There's nothing I can really do to stop him. But Matt is a really, really, really good player. And he understands that if he scores too early, he's going to give it to me with Griff. And I've just shown him that I can score too. Really quickly. So he can't just score on me. He's in position to score by like turn 3 of the second half, but he's not. He's not going to do that. That's the downfall. By about turn 6, turn 5 or so, I've surrounded his cage about 8 squares deep in my side, and I make the decision. I can get a 5-up dodge with my blitzer, and I can take a 2-dice block on his guy.
Yeah.
And I have to do it. And I roll the 5, and I get in there, get the 2 dice, and knock that guy down. The ball bounces around, and we spend the next 2 turns or so fighting over it. Just desperately fighting for who's going to get it. Because if he can pick it up with anybody, he's going to score and win the game at this point. And somehow it ends up in the hands of Griff. And my last move, I mean, the positioning, we both positioned, I think, as perfect as you can.
Yeah.
The last move with Griff gets me 3 squares deep into his side of the pitch. And as we all know, Griff with his movement can go 10. If I get knocked back 1 move, it's going to be a draw. He's got a what do they call him? Ward answer. He's got a catcher, and they both can dodge out if his tree man can do a blitz. By this time, we're both out of rerolls. His tree man needs to blitz one of my guys away to give him 2 2-up dodges, and then he'll get a 1 die to knock me back 1 spot. He looks at me and he goes, "I don't trust this tree man." And it's like, okay, blitz. He rolls it. Tree's not rooted. It's all
Yep.
good. He moves the tree. Double skull.
Oh.
And the tree falls down. And there's like 10 people around us, and the whole group is just like, oh, I did that too. And so now I've got to go down with Griff, and I take Griff down, and I think it's on the last one, on the last go for it into the end zone. I rolled a 1
Mhm.
and had to use sure feet, and it was the most dramatic freaking shake. Put it down, just like, please God, lifted up, got it, and won the game 2-1,
Nice.
which was amazing. It was a lot of fun, really, really good match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was poetic.
that sounds really stressful on a lot of levels, and like the turn planning, especially when you're playing against really skilled coaches, is so significant. Like I don't know. I think when you start Blood Bowl, you're like, oh, I can do cool things. You're just happy to exercise the mechanics and do stuff. And the first chance you get to foul, you're like, oh, I can foul people. Cool. All right, so you played one of the sweatier games you've probably played in a long time.
Yeah.
At what point do you know that you have placed?
Right away, because right next to us, they've already finished their game.
Mm-hmm.
And Jarrett defeated 5-0 John Rivers.
Yeah.
So he's going to win the tournament. So at that point, I'm like, I was hoping for the draw, but good for him.
Yeah.
So he won, and I figured at that point that I placed, and I was following the rankings, but because of the way the last two tables finished, I knew that I got second.
Cool. Yeah, so they're doing the ceremony, they're announcing stuff or whatever. When it comes your turn, when they announce your name, when people start cheering, how does that feel?
Oh, it was so much fun because I wanted to make it a big deal. I'm sitting with Eric Nyberger eating peanuts, and they went first already. They named him champion. They gave him the axe and everything. So I'm like, okay, I'm next. I'm ready. So when they called my name, I was like, yeah, for myself to get everybody going. And then I hopped up and I ran the long way on purpose. I could have gone the back way, but no, that's not me. So I ran the long way, and I didn't walk it. I ran it. And as I was running it, I was like, yeah, and giving those high fives like a marathon runner does. So I'd hold my hand up, and people were high fiving me. So I'm hitting all these high fives as I'm going, making a big deal of it. Naruto running, kind of, not literally, but like just hitting hands everywhere. And that was a great moment. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool. Yeah, there's nothing like that top table rush. That's again one of the things that I've loved from different tabletop games I've played and things, and especially when it's a bigger event, when there's a hype crowd, it's just such a good feeling. But congrats on that.
Thank you. It felt good not to get booed. So, that was nice.
So double skull from a tree is well, that's what the haters can use against you. They'll be like, well, if that tree hadn't double skulled, then this wouldn't even be happening. So
well, that and Griff.
Yeah.
There's always going to be that little asterisk. They're like, oh, that's right. You brought Griff. Yeah, well,
Well, other people could have brought Griff too, and they chose not to. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And personally, I know it can affect results. Obviously, what top two had star players, but I'm also a big fan of just utilizing rule sets. I feel like if you have stuff that's balanced, I know Games Workshop likes to throw a lot of extras, like you mentioned casually, like Death Zone. There's a ton of stuff you can toss in, but like I feel like just the base rules, it's cool to be able to use things. It's cool to be able to use, some of the inducements we'll never see play if they're, not given a venue where it's something that actually seems vaguely appealing or whatever. And I don't think personally, if stars are part of the rule set and everyone has access to them, I don't think it detracts from the win in the way that some people seem to. I don't know. I get a little bit of a bitter saltiness vibe coming from that standpoint in general, but I know. I know there's a bunch of different rule sets, and I think having a variety, people can always just attend what it is they want to do. But I think Chaos Cup, I like the rules packets. They're fun. Obviously the
Yeah, it's
event
fun.
runs
I mean,
well.
you do pay for them. You pay 3 skills for a mega, so
Yeah.
it does cost you something.
Right. Cool. Thanks for talking to me again. I know it takes time and coordination and whatever to figure this all out. And yeah, are there any shout outs either y'all want to give or anything you want to promote?
I want to shout out to my homies in Finland. What's
Okay.
up? I'll see you in Budapest. And yeah, all Team USA, another congratulations for how well they did in Euro Bowl. And to James Luff for running a great tournament, and Matt Vanderbeek for being a hell of an opponent, and everybody I played for being just stand up people. It was a really, really fun time. And you for having us on the show
Thank
and
you.
everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I've got a couple of plugs now that I sit here and probably think about it for a minute. I'm on the organizing committee for the U.S. World Cup bid that we will be launching probably in the next couple of days or so.
Cool.
For Dallas, there's a couple of final things we want to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, so to speak. And so we'll have a big presentation coming out for the community shortly. The deadline, I believe, is mid-December. I think it's the 14th. So in the next couple of weeks, we should have that out. We're looking forward to being in the bid process, and we think we've got a competitive bid that's ready to go for that as well. And then other than that, big shout out to James for running Chaos Cup extraordinarily well.
Yep.
Happy to be involved in my small part with the kickoff event. I've told him, please don't think that this handoff is going to continue where the person who runs the kickoff event is going to take over for you afterwards. But I jest, obviously. He's a great guy, and I would do anything for James.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate you giving us a microphone for a little while, and thanks so much.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons I started the channel, was just to get the U.S. Blood Bowl scene out there a little bit more and give people kind of a lens in. And it's been awesome. Without going too far off topic, it's been awesome from my end to be able to meet so many cool people and to be able to network. And I think Blood Bowl's in a really healthy, really cool spot, especially something that's going to help. Y'all mentioned earlier with Team USA doing so well in Euro Bowl. I feel like we're going to get a lot more integration. I feel like maybe some of those old rivalries will become more lighthearted and fun. It'll be more accessible to everybody, and I think the scene as a whole will benefit from everybody kind of melding together. It's cool to see Canada come down and win, in Florida. It's cool to, be able to place over in Europe, and hopefully we can get a little more circulation too, maybe flight prices will figure themselves out or something. But I would love to see us have a couple of, big US tournaments. And I think if it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen now. But yeah, thanks again for talking to me, and yeah.
Turnover!
Have a cool theme that works from a street bowl perspective. It will not be a street, but it will be a street bowl. We'll see. Soon.
The side event will be for the streets. Okay.